Hi, first grade. Today we are reading Jack and the Beanstalk, Part 1. Our learning objectives are to review the elements of fairy tales, retell and identify elements of a fairy tale, demonstrate an understanding of the word precious, and then draft your narrative retelling of the fairy tale of your choice. Our key vocabulary today are attic, fierce, precious, tremble, and ringing. Okay, attic is a noun, and it is a room at the top of a house in the space under a roof. The attic was filled with old photo albums and dusty boxes. Fierce is an adjective, and it means very strong and dangerous. A fierce wind blew the roof off the treehouse. Precious is an adjective, and it means valuable or very special. Kelly's teddy bear wasn't very expensive, but it was precious to her because it had been hers since she was a baby. Tremble is a verb, and it means to shake from cold or fear. The scary story made Juan tremble. Ringing is a verb, and it means twisting something. After a fun day at the beach, the children sat wringing the water out of their bathing suits. What's a fairy tale? You should know this pretty easy now. It's a fictional story that starts with once upon a time. It always has a problem and a solution. There's often magical characters, and it always ends happily ever after. Fairy tales, so we talked about have magical characters. What were some of the magical characters that have appeared in the fairy tales we've read so far? Fairies, the little man who could do magic, witches, talking frogs. Okay. What about royal characters? Kings, queens, princesses, princes. And how did all of our stories end? Happily ever after. Fantasy or reality? Reality. There's nothing fantasy in there. Fantasy or reality? Fantasy because of the fairy. Fantasy or reality? Fantasy because she's asleep for 100 years. Fantasy or reality? Fantasy. You can't really make straw into gold. Fantasy or reality? If the frog is talking, then it's fantasy. If the frog is not talking, then it could be reality. Fantasy or reality? Reality. People get married all the time. Fantasy or reality? Reality. You could use stones to make a path. Fantasy or reality? Fantasy. There aren't any witches, and you can't have a candy house, but that would be pretty cool. Fantasy or reality? Fantasy. People don't really eat children. How about this one? This could be reality, going home, finding your way home, and finding valuables, right? Okay, our key vocabulary. We've got attic, fierce, precious, tremble, and ringing. Have you ever wanted to trade something for something else that you wanted? So you have something and you wanted to trade it for something else that you wanted. What did you trade? Did you think it was a good trade? I want you to listen carefully to learn what is traded in this fairy tale and decide if you think that it's a good trade. Once upon a time, there was a poor widow who had only a son named Jack and a cow named Milky White. All they had to live on was the milk the cow had given them every morning, which they carried to the market and sold. But one morning, Milky White gave no milk. "Oh, Jack," said the poor widow, wringing her hands, "we have nothing to eat and no money. We must sell poor Milky White." Cheer up, Mother, said Jack. It's market day today. I will sell Milky White and we will be better off. You'll see. So Jack took the cow and started down the road. He had not gone far when he had met an unfamiliar man. The man said, "Good morning, Jack." "Good morning to you," said Jack, and he wondered how the old man knew his name. "Well, Jack, where are you off to?" said the man. "I'm going to the market to sell our cow there." "Oh, yes, you look just like the sort of fellow to sell a cow," said the man. "Now, I wonder," he asked Jack, "do you know how many beans make 5? Jack thought this was a strange question, but he answered it anyway. 2 beans in each hand and 1 bean in your mouth? That makes 5. "Right you are," said the old man, and then, pulling something out of his pocket, he said, "And here they are." He held out 5 very unusual beans. "Now, because you're such a smart fellow," he said to Jack, "I will trade you these beans for your cow." "Well, now," said Jack, "that would be a nice trade for you." "Ah, but you don't know what kind of beans these are," said the man. "If you plant them tonight, then by morning they will grow right up into the sky." "Really?" said Jack, who was beginning to get interested. "Yes," said the man. "And if it doesn't turn out to be true, then you can have your cow back." "All right, then," said Jack. He gave the man the cow, took the beans, and went home. What do you think about this trade? Do you think this was a good idea? "Jack, are you back already?" said his mother. "I see you've sold Milky White. How much did you get for her?" "Mother, you'll never guess," said Jack. "Oh, you good boy," said his mother. "Did you get 5 or 10? Maybe even, no, it can't be, 20? What do you think his mom's talking about? Probably money. "I told you that you couldn't guess," said Jack. Then, reaching into his pocket, he said, "See here, Mother, I got 5 beans. You plant them, and then over that night they—" "What?" cried his mother. "Beans? You gave away my Milky White for beans? How could you be such a fool? Off to bed with you, and no supper. And as for your precious beans, here they go out the window." So Jack went to his little attic room without dinner, where he flopped down and finally fell asleep. When he woke up, the room looked funny. The sun was shining into part of it, but all the rest was dark and shady. He jumped up and went to the window. And what do you think he saw? Why, the beans his mother had thrown out the window had landed in the garden, and overnight they had sprung up into an enormous beanstalk, which went up and up and up till it reached the sky. So the old man had been telling the truth. The beanstalk grew right up to Jack's window. All he had to do was step out onto it and then start climbing, like a ladder. So Jack climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, until at last he reached the sky. And when he got there, he saw a long, straight road. He followed the road until he came to a great, big, tall house, and on the doorstep there was a great, big, tall woman. "Good morning, ma'am," said Jack quite politely. "Could you be so kind as to give me some breakfast?" "Oh, so you want breakfast?" said the great, big, tall woman. "Well, you'll be breakfast if you don't get out of here. My husband is a fierce giant, and there's nothing he likes better than nice cooked boys on buttered toast. You'd better get going, for he'll be coming soon." "Oh, please, ma'am," said Jack. "I haven't eaten since yesterday. Really and truly." Well, the giant's wife wasn't so bad after all. She took Jack into the kitchen and gave him a chunk of bread and cheese and a jug of milk. But Jack hadn't finished half of these when the whole house began to tremble with the noise of someone coming. Someone big. That's the end for this one. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow. Okay, if you need a wiggle break, go ahead and do that, and then come right back for our questions and word work. What characters appeared in this story? We had the mom, the cow, the man who sold the beans to Jack, Jack, the giant's wife, and the giant. Are any of these magical characters? The giant and his wife are both magical, right? Because they were both giants. What word would you use to describe Jack? Well, maybe brave because he went up into the sky. I don't think I would do that. Maybe a little foolish because he traded the cow for some beans. What other words might you think of? I don't know. What was the setting of this story? Well, once upon a time, of course. What else? Jack's house, the road to the market, the giant's house. Why was Jack's mom wringing her hands at the beginning of the fairy tale? She was worried because their cow, Milky White, had stopped giving milk, and they had no other way to earn money to eat. Right? Why do you think the man traded the beans for the cow? Because a cow is probably more valuable than some beans, right? And what does Jack's mother do when she hears about the trade? Is she very happy? No. She throws the beans out the window and she sends Jack to his attic room without dinner. Did she think that the beans were precious, meaning very special? Mm-mm. What did Jack discover when he woke up the next morning? A giant beanstalk had grown from the beans, and it went all the way to the sky, just like the man had said. Who does Jack meet after he climbs the beanstalk? The giant's wife, right? And what does this part of the fairy tale, how does this part of the fairy tale end? With something big coming, right? He heard the thump, thump, thump. Who do you think is coming? We'll have to see if your prediction is right tomorrow. And would a plant really grow this fast, or is that fantasy? That's fantasy. And could a person really climb a beanstalk? No, that's fantasy too. Okay. Okie dokie. In the read aloud you heard, and as for your precious beans, here they go out the window. I want you to say the word precious for me. Precious. Can you whisper it? Precious. Can you clap it out? Precious. Can you robot voice it? Precious. Okay. If something is precious, it means it's very valuable and special. Can you tell me about something that's precious to you? And make sure you use the word precious. My pets are precious to me. All right. Did we review the elements of fairy tales? Uh-huh. Did we retell and identify elements of a fairy tale? Yep. Did we demonstrate an understanding of the word precious? Mm-hmm. And you are going to write the draft of the fairy tale that you chose. Have a great day. Bye.